One played the game for a decade. The others talked about it for longer than that. Together, they're That Other Baseball Show.
All right, episode number 2. Good to have you with us. That Other Baseball Show is on. He is David Aardsma. I am Jason Page. Brian Kenny will swing by. We'll have a couple segments with him on the show today, which means I'm going to hear a lot about analytics, I have a feeling. Just a hunch. I'm going to get... stop. No fist pumping. My head spins when people start talking about analytics, and I know I'm going to get plenty of that whenever I have Brian Kenny on the show. We start things out, obviously, with the Houston Astros, because Justin Verlander is going to make his season debut on Friday for an Astros team that's 6-20 coming into play on Thursday, David. All right, as a pitcher, as somebody, like, I can't watch TV or listen to the radio without noticing every subtle, nuance and glitch and things like that. I'm sure you're the same way when it comes to pitching. What will you be watching for in that first start for Verlander, even in the first inning?
What I want to see somebody who looks comfortable and confident on the mound. When you're coming back from injuries and the first time you're on the mound, you tend to be a little careful. You're not quite smooth. You don't have your rhythm. And that's a lot of times why we do the minor league starts and you do the rehab starts. It's just to get more confident on the mound. Yes, you want to build up your pitch count, but to feel confident under the lights and everything. So I'm going to be watching him to stand on the mound, get into rhythm, throwing strikes, getting ahead of counts. A lot of times when you face these big league lineups, your first time coming back, they're going to try to jump on you. There's either one or two things. They either jump all over you or they wait and super wait and try to make you throw pitches and prove that you're back. If Justin Verlander jumps in there, pumping strikes right down the zone, good fastball, mid to upper 90s, like we know of Justin Verlander, then you're going to see a Nationals team then try to attack and try to jump out there quick. If he's struggling, I expect them to wait.
Does it matter that he's coming back to a 6-20 team or I think it's 6-20 or 6-14, whatever it is? Does it matter that he's coming back to a team that's struggling as much as this one is? Does it put more pressure on him, to give them more innings, to take some of the stress off a bullpen that struggled? From that mindset, try and get me inside his head.
100%. A team that's struggling this much, and you're bringing back your ace, your number one, the guy who is supposed to right the ship. When you're having a bad weekend series, you go on the road to face a tough team like Atlanta, and you're facing, you lose 2 out of 3, you get swept, whatever it is, you're always expecting your ace to step on that mound and just right the ship. Get us back on track. Give me a win. Give me a good 7 innings. This team has been struggling, and their big giant circle is their starting rotation. They've been really bad outside of Blanco. He's really the only one that's gone out there and pitched really well. So man for man, that's the spot they've been struggling. He's the ace. He's the guy who's supposed to be leading that group of pitchers. I mean, they had a 5 game stretch where they threw 13 1/3 innings out of the starting rotation. I mean, that's as bad as it gets. That is, you're going out there as a bullpen going, oh, God, again, here we go. The guy gets lit up in the first inning. Just keep this train going. So the rotation starts to struggle. The bullpen starts to struggle. It's a downward spiral. That team offensively has been doing well. But when you have that guy coming in, everybody's going to look at him and say, Justin, basically, we need you. That's a lot of pressure. But if I'm going to put that pressure on somebody, it's going to be Justin Verlander.
Once every 5th day, too, and they're going to obviously need more help to sort of give him a hand. Talk about the Astros at large, though. At what point do you start to worry about a team with a championship pedigree, 6-14? To me, it's almost relative to everybody else in your division. And the one thing they have going for them right now is their division stinks right now. I mean, 10-9 is Texas in the early going, sort of leading the way. The Mariners have started to play a little better. They've won a few in a row. They swept the Reds. But to me, I don't think you really have to panic if you're this group. And you have so many guys that have been through the battles on this roster. I don't sense that there's any panic there.
I wouldn't panic too much. Don't get me wrong. You should be stressed out and start to push it. And if I'm the front office, I'm the manager, if I'm the pitching coach, I'm going, guys, like, we We got to get this thing going. At the same time, we know what the problem is, and it's pretty simple. It is that rotation, it is that bullpen. It's very clear. It's not like we're looking at that lineup going, oh God, where are they going to get runs from? They have a great lineup. They're second or third in the entire league in OPS. They're doing wonderful in the lineup. I know Jose Abreu is off to an abysmal start, so that's not a problem.
Which he was last year too. He struggled in the early going last year.
Absolutely. I think he's got a 0.7 batting average, 0.078 batting average. We're okay. I'm okay with one guy in the middle of that lineup doing really bad. The rest of the lineup's actually doing really good. Maybe runners in scoring position, we can do better. I'm not worried about it. But I do know my problem is the rotation. What I got going for me, though, I got Framber Valdez. I got Justin Verlander coming back. I know I got other guys that are hurt that should be coming back at some point. I can sit back and say, hey, at least there's something on the way. I also know the other place is my 9, 8, and 7 innings have been absolutely brutal. I also have 3 of the best 9, 8, 7 inning pitchers in baseball. Let's step back and figure that out. Let these guys figure their moments out. I don't have too many concerns if I'm on this team. If I'm sitting there going, I got rotation help coming, and I know the bullpen will figure it out eventually, because that's what the one thing I've been great at for the last 6 years. That's a good thing. Also, this team has been below 500 at this point in every single season the past 6 years. Take a breath. Let Justin Verlander come back, and hopefully that one guy can start a fire. It happened. I've seen it before. That one guy comes back, and everybody just goes, we got Justin.
Is that real? Is that thing real? Because we talk about it in the media a lot, but we're not in the locker room. We're not in the dugout.
100%.
Is that 100%. Mentality of some normalcy with Verlander coming back, relax? That's all real, isn't it? It's not just something we make up.
100%. And what he brings the team isn't just that he's an Astro who's won. He's a guy that's won every single place he's gone. But every uniform he's put on, whether it be Tiger, whether it be Astros, and I get it, he went to New York and had some issues with his arm, but when he came back, like, they won again. He's never been on a team that's really struggled outside of 1 year. So that's what when you see the guy come in the locker room, you're just like, man, we're back. We'll have some normalcy. It's the same thing as in the trade deadline. You're a good team and you just need something, and you see the front office make that move, and you just see that dude walk in the locker room. You're just like, yes, they believe in us. We believe in ourselves now. And Justin does that. Justin has that cool, calm, relaxed, huge presence when he walks in the locker room. Everybody can just take a breath and go, we're back to normal. This dude gives us 6 innings. We're great.
And Joe Espada, I mean, look, for a new manager, kind of a tough position to be in, obviously, with the slow start. Interesting to see how he also helps to hold all that together. This is what we think and what we're looking at when it comes to the Astros. But what does Brian Kenny think? He's the host of MLB Now, noon weekdays, Monday through Friday. We'll get his thoughts on that and a whole bunch more as that other baseball show continues. Rolling along on this second edition of That Other Baseball Show. We talked a little bit about the Astros. We'll bring in Brian Kenny, talk with him about the Astros a little bit as well. Does a great job over on MLB Network. Catch him weekdays there. All right, first thing I got to do, because in your actual lower third that I gave you, Brian, I said Brian Kenny, MLB Network host, loves short baseball games. Now, an hour and 48 minutes. Even for you, that's got to be a little too short, BK. Come on.
I don't know. Imagine a world, just for a second, where all the games are coming in at 2 hours. And you just know I can devote a short little window of my day to watch a whole baseball game and do a lot of other things in my day. It's very 1908. But baseball was the number 1 sport on earth in 1908. I'm just saying. I
don't want 2 hours. I want to go and enjoy myself at the game. If I got there late yesterday, I missed half the game.
Get there on time. That's not my problem. I know what you're saying. I even, it's funny. Anytime I've gone to games, like last year and this year, including one time with my wife, and I look up, I say, hey, it's the 5th inning already. She's like, you've ruined everything. Yes. She's like, why do you insist on this? I'm like, I know, when you're there, it actually is a little, when you've grown used to these long, epic slogs, it does seem very fast. So I get it. Yet I think, like, we're the average, I checked it today with this game coming in. we're at 2 hours, 38 minutes. That's a good time. I mean, it's even longer than 2.5 hours. That's the average, guys. So I think that's a good time.
Yeah, 2:38 isn't bad. Go ahead, David.
No, I don't mind it at all. And my wife was the same way. She would never show up before the 9th inning, because if she did, they know we're going to go to extra innings, that extra long ball game. She absolutely hated it. Were you always pushing for quicker games, or is this something that the last couple of years you've just enjoyed?
No, since we've gotten on the air here at MLB Network, and I did Clubhouse Confidential 2011, 2012, and then it became MLB Now 2013. We've been looking at like the evolution of baseball and a lot of things that were happening that were not good for the game, good for individuals, good for individual teams. I mean, I'm an advocate of bullpenning, a big fan of like just the whole analytics revolution, obviously. And yet a lot of that was driving things toward a not better entertainment product. So the 3 true outcomes, that's difficult. It's difficult to get to. We got to still try to get strikeouts down in the game. But I maintained if you just did pitch timer and you deaden the baseball a little bit, you would solve a lot of the issues in baseball today.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, he's all about deadening the baseball. Hey, what are you looking
baseball,
for?
Baby.
Let me ask you something, Brian. I was just talking about it with David in the last segment. What are you looking for when it comes to Justin Verlander? What are some of the things you'll be keying in on in that first start back for him on Friday?
Well, I was looking some things up. His velocity has gone down a tick. I think he's been sitting 94. He was sitting 94 last year, and now he's a year older. So I don't think we can expect the same sort of dominance. His strikeout rate has gone down year after year. Now he's coming from the mountaintop, so it's diminishing. Obviously, from a high point, he still should be effective. Over the last 3 years, he still has the best park-adjusted ERA in the game, number 1. But he hasn't pitched as many innings. He obviously missed 1 full season, et cetera. So we're kind of seeing that trajectory of where he's kind of in Clayton Kershaw territory now. Last 2 years, I think he's pitched 175 and 169 innings. Kershaw usually comes in around 149 innings, but excellent work. So we'll see if Verlander can be like that. Max Scherzer is in the same boat where there's still some excellence there, but it's not going to be in the same volume. And I'll give Verlander credit. Like, he still manages to post up. He was clearly gassed in the playoffs last year, but he came out and gave quality starts, gave them what they needed so they could win a title. He's a warrior. He's a Hall of Famer, all that, but it's diminishing at this point. So we can't expect like some sort of sub-2 ERA or 100 and even 180 innings is asking too much.
It's interesting. Yeah. 94.3 last year. And when you look back to 15 and 16, he was 94.1, 93.4 in 2015. It's interesting that he had a little extra jump towards the end of his career, and he's kind of coming back down to where he was when he wasn't that great with the Tigers. But speaking more on Verlander and arm injuries and all that, obviously I know you've hit on this. Are we seeing an actual increase in injuries, or are we seeing an increase to the aces, to the number 1 guys, and that's just kind of opening our eyes to the injuries?
The answer to the overall question is yes. The first question, the answer is no. We're not seeing an increase. And there's people who have studied this. Travis Sawchik, I attributed a quote to him. He wrote something in The Score last week, and he looked at it, I think, kind of the best way of looking at it. In the first 100 days, how many, Tommy John surgeries were required in Major League and minor league baseball. Now, again, it's kind of rough data because maybe guys are getting it scheduled, they haven't had it done yet, and that sort of thing. But on average, the average over the last 10 years is about 33. And we're at, I think, 13. I can't remember now. Might be 13, might be 16 this year. We're well below the average for this year. It's just big name guys have done it. We talked to Dr. Glenn Fleissig, who is one of the leading experts in the field, just this week on MLB Now. And he said the same thing. Nope, there's no uptick. It hasn't gone up. It has not gone up since the advent of the pitch timer. That was something the Players Association threw out there. It's not true. It's not happening. But what we've seen is, and the dynamic over the last 25 years, and I try to explain it in an essay, it's not just that kids are playing year round. It's that we went from, your superstar kid went from 3 sports. And I remember covering kids who were drafted when I was doing local TV, local kids in my area in upstate New York. All those kids, and we're talking mid-90s, they were playing three sports. They were the point guard, they were the running back, and then they would go and maybe they would pitch for one season of the whole year. Those kids not only went from playing three sports, they went to just pitching. They're not even playing shortstop anymore. So from age 8 or 9 or 10 or 11, as soon as they have their growth spurt, they are pitcher only, playing year round, not playing other sports. That's what's doing this.
Brian, give me a thought to go back to the Astros for a second. At what point do you start to worry? Is it relative to the rest of the division and what they're doing? But at 6-20, is it 40 games in if it doesn't turn around? At what point do you start to worry there's a deeper problem here?
Well, yeah, if they're not treading water, right? Like if they don't get to 500, because you can be at 500 and you're still within striking distance. But we saw last year for the Cardinals, right? You can fall to a point where you do not recover. So I don't know, that's maybe Memorial Day, but if you dip below 10 games under 500 or something like that, yeah, it's worrisome. I think the general horsepower of the team is sufficient that they'll be okay. I think their general structure, there's still a lot of performance there, and I'd be surprised if they go that far downhill. But to your point, we saw it with Mets, Padres, Cardinals, Mariners, and Guardians last year. I called them the malaise teams. All teams that were supposed to be ascending that plummeted. And only the Mariners bounced back and ended up having what you could call a good season. And they didn't even make the playoffs, but they got close. They had 88 wins, I think, something like that. Everybody else, vastly disappointing. And it can get away from you. The season can get away, and it just builds on itself at that point.
Yeah, and the one good piece of news really is the fact the Rangers are only 10-9. At the top of that division. We're hanging out with Brian Kenny. A lot more to do with him as we continue. More conversation. This edition of That Other Baseball Show continues. That Other Baseball Show continues, and our conversation continues with our friend Brian Kenny, who does a terrific job MLB Now over on MLB Network. Catch him weekday afternoons there. Well, unless you're like us West Coasters, like David and I, where we get to wake up with you. We get to have breakfast with you, Brian.
I know, early morning show. I'm not quite the morning zoo, I guess. Like your wacky morning zoo team, but yeah, it's nutrient dense. We try to give you good information.
Absolutely. Give me some thoughts on the Yankees here. I'm going to ask about them because they are my favorite team. They're 13-6. Got a nice come from behind win in Toronto after dropping a few in a row. Obviously, the Juan Soto impact cannot be overstated here in the early going. What are your impressions of the Yankees early on?
Yeah, look, we'll start there. Like, he's a perfect Yankee. I mean, there's no, and someone brought up, I think we had Rob Parker on. Soto brings swag to the Yankees. And I had to say, I loathe swag. I hate it. It's like I said, it's such nonsense analysis. Oh, there's so much swag. How much swag does a team have? I hate that. But there's energy, there's life, there's plate discipline, there's approach. The guy does bring a certain joy and production to the team. So, yeah, he brings the steak and the sizzle. I'm a bigger fan of steak than sizzle. But there's no question, in a team last year, I described the Yankees last year when Brian Cashman, remember, talked about, are we too analytic? That's not true. And I counterpointed that by saying they kind of look like analytic robots. Like there's no life, there's no joy, there's no small things happening. They either bludgeon you or they can't beat you. And here's Soto in the middle, again, bringing real things. His plate discipline is state of the art, his swing. He does not chase. His contact is good. His walk rate is good. His power is good. But there's also a certain life to him that is energizing on that team. He's a left-handed hitter. He's just something they didn't have. And these are the things that we can't quite quantify. They're hard to put vocabulary to, but for whatever reason, he was a bad fit for the Padres. He's a great fit for the Yankees.
And you want to know why? You know what this is? This is the Yankees that they used to be. They used to have a little swagger. They used to walk in and the pinstripes meant something. I like it. I like when you can root against the Yankees, but they're good. And I think that's one of the best things for baseball is when the Yankees are good and you want 95% of all baseball fans to hate them. And I think this is great for baseball. I think it helps Judge a lot that there's someone else there taking some of that swagger and just letting him be.
Yeah, he was like a one-man band. Once Anthony Rizzo was concussed, there was one guy in the lineup that could hurt you. Gleyber Torres was okay, but not great. This makes them multi-dimensional. I also think that because the Yankees are kind of still a very buttoned-up organization, it has a good effect on him. I think he now, he can have his fun. They're letting him roam, but there's also a little more level of seriousness that you need to impose on this guy. And you could see him from the moment he threw that guy out in his first or second game in that first series, like, whoa, he's playing defense seriously because he can be a good all-around player. So again, do I want to pay him $500 million if I was Brian Cashman? No, but man, I have to say right now, quote, do a John Sterling, he's a terrific Yankee. He is a terrific Yankee. It's all working out.
BK, give me some thoughts on the Royals here at 12-7 and a plus 40 run differential. I thought they were a team that could be a surprise. David thought they were a team that could be a surprise when we talked before the season started. I know it's early, but you got to like what you see out of the Royals early on.
No, I really like – I'm not where you guys are. I'm way back on that. I don't think they have the horsepower. Again, I look at the general engine of a club. That said, they've made big strides. It was funny. I was watching them play the Mets, whatever it was 4 or 5 days ago, and I just got the sense that they were kind of on equal footing, which obviously only a year ago, it was a lightweight versus a heavyweight, and the Mets being the heavyweight. They just had, again, much more firepower, star power. They had weight. They had superstars on their team. Bobby Witt is playing like a best player in baseball. I mean, he is that good. We're not talking about hey, he's playing like an all-star. Nope, much better than that. He's playing like a superstar player. I don't think he's surrounded with enough star power, horsepower, whatever you want to say. They've had some players emerge. They're a much more serious team, and I think it's great news. I love to see. Look, we're seeing good Pittsburgh baseball, good Baltimore baseball, great Baltimore baseball, good Kansas City baseball. We like to see teams that are just not, Mets, Yankees, Dodgers, hedge fund baseball taking over the country. I like to see good, I want to call it heartland baseball, but lower markets making a run. It's good news for baseball. I don't think the Royals are a playoff team.
No, I think I agree with you. I think they're a good team. I think they were a team that was going to wreak a little bit of havoc in that Central. I was not expecting this, and I expect a little regression. Speaking of hedge fund baseball, obviously with MLB Now and with what you're doing, you love analytics, you love sabermetrics, you love the data side of it. I love it too. I'm into it. How do we make this more normalized to the fan? Because I'm watching a baseball game and they pop up on the screen, OPS plus. How many fans do you think see that and care? How many actually care? I get it, and I know what the numbers mean, but the problem with a lot of these stats is we have to normalize it, right? We have to make it normalized to the league versus just we know what RBI means, right? How many fans do you think really care, and how do we make this more normalized to where fans actually either can actually like it?
Well, I think it's happening, and maybe it's a little slower. It's slower than I would like. Look, you have broadcasters now regularly talking about park-adjusted ERA or park-adjusted OPS. It's the same thing, ERA plus, OPS plus. I use weighted runs created plus, which is very much like OPS plus. Shows you the overall hitting. And I sometimes stop down and explain it, but after a while, it's if I stop down and explain every stat, my essay is going to be 20 minutes long instead of 6 minutes long. But at the same time, look, baseball is actually already quite complicated. So if we're thinking, this is complicating things, baseball is complicated. I had relatives come over from Ireland last week, and try explaining baseball to someone from another country. It's complicated. There's a lot. How many strikes are you allowed? How many balls? Then what happens? How come that guy got tagged and he's still, how come, so there's a million things to be talking about. So I think if you say OPS plus and ERA plus, is, adjusted to the park and adjusted to the run scoring environment of the season. So you can compare Ted Williams to George Brett to Ronald Acuna. I think that sort of thing makes sense. I don't even talk OPS. I want OPS plus. Everything's based off 100 being league average. If you have a 110, you're 10% better than league average. If you have a 90, you're 10% lower than league average. I don't think that's that complicated.
Why don't we just do like a Kenny cast, right? Where you're watching the game, you're explaining it in like the higher level understanding, and then we have the normalized 1995 dumbed down version.
Me,
I think the average
I'll host that version. I'll host that one.
Let's do both.
Jason's so hating this, but I would maintain, listen to a guy like, I don't know, listen to Gary Cohen, who calls games in Mets games. So that's who I listen to. I'm in this area, so I'll listen to SNY. I'll watch SNY. And I want, next time, or any of your play-by-play guys that you guys listen to, just listen through this lens of how often they bring up a stat or any number. They bring any regular play-by-play guy. I think Ernie Harwell would have brought up a ton of stats. So they're already using stats. Just use the ones that you think are most applicable. So that's what I would do. And I've done a StatCast show. We've done StatCast broadcasts. But I've maintained call the ball game and then add to it when it flavors it properly. Don't force it. So even when I've done StatCast broadcasts, Saber casts, as we've called them, I've tried to just call the ball game and then mention, hey, by the way, he's, right now, like Mookie Betts has a 200 weighted runs created plus. League average is 100. He has the strength of two men. Like, this is obscene. Like, this is MVP all-time territory. Like, there's ways of knowing, where there's, at the same time, like, I'll get into some of the StatCast things. I'll say, hey, like, or even win probability added. One guy has a 2.4 and the other has a 3.4. I say the ratio doesn't matter. You don't have to know what the numbers are, but know that this guy is number one in the league in adding win probability to his team, which means he's the number one clutch guy in the league. So try to assess it so it makes sense. I never just force numbers in, even to the show. I try to ask a baseball question and answer it. And frequently that's with some advanced tool or data. I
need like 7 Advil right now. I need the whole bottle.
I'm taking it though.
I'm just taking the whole bottle.
How have you not gotten down? You watch so much baseball. How are you not down with the revolution?
Just not.
How are you? Why would you not want to know this stuff?
Let me ask you one more before I let you go.
For the record, he's not answering the question.
Nope, I'm not. I am not counselor. Give me a thought, because I was talking about this on my other show, Sports Wrap, about the Coyotes leaving Arizona and last night being their last game. And we're going to go through this again later this year with the A's. And we're going to be watching it throughout the season. And then they're going to leave at the end of September and go to Sacramento. And that city's going to be left without a franchise. And you are of a certain age and can understand what that franchise has meant to that community and to that city. I think it's a pox on everybody's houses that this is wound up where it is, but it is where it is. And kind of give me some thoughts as you reflect on the A's time in Oakland.
Look, it's sad. And I went to a lot of games out there because both my sons went to Berkeley. And so I was out there a lot, and I obviously watched a lot of A's baseball, and dropped in on Billy Beane a lot during those days, and big fan of Oakland baseball. But like, you've got to have a certain level of attendance to expect that team to stay. Otherwise, it's going to be tenuous. And it really hasn't been there. It wasn't there even. They won 97 games back-to-back years. And I don't have the figures in front of me, but the attendance was less than robust, let's say. And when I think the same thing when I see games in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I see the Rays in the playoffs, and they haven't sold out. And then you watch baseball in Philadelphia and Seattle and Atlanta and New York, and you're saying, or St. Louis, and you're thinking, the joint is jumping, and they're just not doing it in those cities, and it's been that way for a while. So I know it's sad. I hate to see it. I enjoyed watching games at the Coliseum. I didn't think it was that terrible, to be honest with you. But I know, like, even when they had the protest game, it wasn't 45,000 people. They're just not jamming the place on a regular basis. At a certain point, you've got to draw. And I understand you can blame the team if they're not winning. but Oakland was kind of winning. And Oakland never went through a teardown, even in the years where they weren't spending a lot of money in those like late Billy Bean, David Forst years. They were winning. They never like hit bottom with 111 losses, not until last year. And yet they're just, they weren't drawing 2-3 million fans. They're not.
No. And in 2018-19, when they did that, they were 24th and 27th in the league in attendance in 97 wins.
Right. And look, even if you're low, look, we have a high bar now. As much as we talk about, baseball and what you have to do to save baseball, it's like attendance is still extremely high as compared to when I was like coming of age in the 80s. Like attendance is much bigger than it was back then, when it was like the biggest sport, the national pastime and all that. So things are pretty robust in a lot of cities. And again, you can see baseball reinvigorated in a lot of places where they're just selling out and it's a big hot ticket. And it's not in Oakland. So I hate to see it, but at a certain point, the community has to show, like, unless you're losing every year, which they weren't, you have to be supporting that team and have big numbers. They didn't have it.
Brian Kenny, always appreciate it, my friend. MLB Now is the show, weekdays at noon over on MLB Network. I especially appreciate it because you came on after your own show today. Thank you, sir. It's good to catch up.
Good to see you. Thank you. Take care.
Stick around. More Tobbs on the other side. Don't go anywhere. All right, thanks to Brian Kenny for hanging out with us on that other baseball show. Always good to catch up with him, even if he does want to talk about analytics and make my head spin around. So, see, I told you when we started the show, do not give him an opening on analytics. And what did you do? You brought it up, and I had to sit there for 5 minutes doing this. Because that's about all I have to contribute when you start going down the analytics road. So, lesson learned for me. All right, let's talk some pitching here to wrap up the program. Yeah, I know. You love it. I need some thoughts on this Pete Fairbanks thing. Reliever, closer, Tampa Bay, the Rays. And he had a bit of an outburst after a bad performance. And I won't even call it an outburst. He just had an honest assessment of how his performance went. Take a listen, and then we'll react on the other side.
And location, selection, anything specific?
No, I thought it generally sucked. I didn't think it was a specific suck. I thought it was like an all-encompassing type of suck. So, we're going to try and rectify that. But for right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed about it.
Pete, where do you kind of go from here? Is it looking at tape? Is it going through mechanics? Where do you kind of go from here?
You tell me. I've tried that. If you got an answer, I'd love to hear. Just, not going to let it beat me up for, I'll maybe give it till 10. It's 9:44 right now. We'll give it 16 minutes of sulk, and then we'll, get back on the bump and figure it out.
So I have to ask you, first of all, you have to have memories of being in that position where the media comes running up to you after a game where you've just been terrible. Did you ever have like an outburst like that, or did you kind of handle it differently?
Well, I'll tell you my very first game, second game in the big leagues, very first game in the big leagues. And we talked about this with Cameron Maben. I had a win in my very first game, which was amazing. I wasn't even the pitcher on the mound that when we took the lead, they gave it to me by score of discretion, which is, so the media told me I got the win.
Oh my God.
Right. Like
that's the most
insane.
Wow. All right.
Done everything. Been there, done that. And so second game, we go down to
Did you even get the baseball? Did you even get the baseball or a baseball?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
My parents have it. My parents have it.
Right.
And second game, we go down to Petco, and we open up Petco. So that's the very first game ever. Trevor Hoffman comes in with hell's bells and gives it up. He gave up the lead. We go into, I think it's the ninth inning. Our closer struggling, I think, is Matt Herges. I come in, actually give up his run, so give up the loss. First thing, we come in the locker room, they couple of relievers grab me and say, "Hey, you own up to this. Stand up to the camera, say I did it. Like, this was on me. I struggled. You don't throw the team under the bus. You don't do anything, even if you think somebody could have caught a ball. So then you own it and you stand in front of the camera. Hey, I sucked. I struggled. This is that. I'll get over it. Tomorrow's a new day." Well, the standard stuff. But I've never had an outburst like this. And that's telling me that Pete is struggling inside. There is something deep in him that he has lost. And him and Kyle Snyder, the pitching coach of the Rays, have to figure that out.
Well, he said something, and I thought it was very, maybe it's me just nitpicking from what he said, but he said, when they asked him, hey, what's wrong, what's has to be fixed, he's like, you tell me. Well, isn't that the job of a pitching coach in that spot?
Yes, 100%. That is a giant red flag to me, and that is a huge red flag. That means that and Pete hasn't been struggling that much. This was a really bad outing. He had another bad outing on April 5th against the Cubs or against the Rockies. So I
saw that one against the Rockies. That was rough.
That was a rough one. No outs, 3 walks, 3 hits.
Yeah.
Or no hits, but 3 walks, 3 earned runs. I mean, that's as bad as it gets. So there's been a couple bad outings here. So what tells me is he's been getting by on those other outings, those 4 or 5 in between, luckily. And he is feeling wrong. Something is wrong with him. He is moving different, and he knows it. I think Kyle Snyder knows it. I think the front office knows it. Analytics department with the Rays, which is probably best in baseball. They all know it. They just don't know what the fix is. And that's what's screaming to me is they don't know the fix is. Something is wrong. Something is off. And it's probably not on the data side. It's probably not on like the pitch side. It's just showing up and saying something's different, but we have no idea what it is.
Something mechanical?
Yes. This is mechanical and mental. Right. And that's the hardest to fix is when the mechanical gets to the mental. Fixing mechanics is easy. That is not hard. We'll show you what you did in the past. What were you, and we can fix it. We can get you to that point, especially these big leaders. Pete Fairbanks is such a great pitcher. We can get you back. It's the fixing the mental part of that to get you that confidence of saying, let it go, stop thinking too much while fixing something. That's the difficult.
All right. When I was in Pony League, my coach used to tell me, just sing a song in your head. And that would help getting you in a rhythm. Just sing a song in your head and have that song playing and you get into a rhythm.
Think of everybody naked. You're good.
There we go. Jack Leiter made his debut on Thursday. It wasn't the greatest debut, but the Rangers wound up winning. Again, from a pitcher's point of view, from a pitcher's perspective, there's a kid who was the second overall pick in 2021, only behind Henry Davis. By the way, it's a stacked draft. If you want to take a few minutes and go take stock in a stacked draft, go and look at that one. As somebody who was drafted in the first round, you were 22nd, I think you said, in 2003.
22nd pick.
You were drafted 22nd. Talk about the pressures that come with that status and everything that comes with it.
Huge pressure. I mean, again, back then in 2003, the media wasn't the same. The media might have still been crazy about it, but you didn't know about it because there was no social media and people aren't talking to you, and AAA, they're not like hyping you up the same way, and cameras aren't following you everywhere. But it doesn't matter. When you make that debut, when you're throwing that for that first time, it is a big deal, and you know it, you feel it. And Jack coming into this game, everybody knew about it. It was incredible on social media, the amount of people talking about Jack Leiter's start. And you're going into this game and you're facing a tough Tigers lineup. You're facing a team that will jump over any pitcher that's making mistakes. I think this is a scary lineup right now with how they play. And it did not go as well for him either. It didn't go 7 earned runs, I think in 3 1/3, something like that, 3 2/3. That is a tough first outing.
But you know what? You see signs during a start like that. You see certain moments, how he pitches to certain guys, and you say, he's going to be fine.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be just fine. Yes, some of the, what I was seeing was a fastball that seemed a little straight for me. A little straight, so he's got to learn how to use it. And on the big league level, I saw some very good off-speed pitches and some mistakes. And you know what? When you're getting yourself into counts, some pitches where you're looking at it going, man, that's a great pitch. The problem is the count. And the 3 pitches before that made that pitch very hittable. And so that's what I saw was him struggling to get into the counts that he wanted to get into, throw the pitches then in those counts that he wanted to throw. This is going to happen. It happens with young guys. What we're going to see, though, is he gives up 7 runs and they win the game. So that's the beautiful part about this. He doesn't even get the L on the back of his name. And his first start is not an L. It's just a no decision. It's nothing. It's a wash across the board. It's almost like it didn't happen. Well, your ERA knows it. But who cares? And so that's the beautiful part. When that lineup comes in, they all grab him and they're going to shake his hand in the locker room and say, hey, don't care. Who cares? We got your back. Go out there and just pitch. And that's the beautiful part of what the Rangers have. They can just let these guys come up, struggle, and then get right and not even worry about it.
Can't even imagine what it's like for Al Leiter in that moment, the pride he must feel seeing his son out there. And it always amazes me when I see fathers watching their sons, and both have played Major League Baseball. The whole thing kind of blows my mind. That's going to wrap it up for us this week. Excellent job as always, David. We'll see you back here next week. Thank you to Brian Kenny for hanging out with us from MLB Network. I am Jason Page. That's David Aardsma. This is That Other Baseball Show. We'll see you next week.